Donald Trump is furious as Europe hits back hard with massive revenge tariffs on American goods. In response, Trump is going nuclear, threatening a devastating 200% tariff on European imports.
President Trump is threatening to slap 200% tariffs on alcohol from the European Union. It's in response to the bloc's placing a flat duty of 50% on US whiskey.
This isn't just a trade dispute. It's an all-out economic war that could shake global markets and send shockwaves through the US economy. Businesses are at risk of collapsing, jobs are on the line, and prices could skyrocket for millions of Americans. And here's the worst part. This is just the beginning. New developments are unfolding, and the consequences could be even bigger than anyone expected. Before we break it all down, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. This story is evolving fast, and you don't want to be left behind. Let's get into it, because things are getting very serious. The trade tensions between the United States and the European Union have reached alarming heights, igniting a full-blown trade war that threatens global economic stability. The initial spark was President Donald Trump's decision to impose a 25% tariff on steel imports and increase tariffs on aluminum imports to 25%, citing national security concerns under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act. This move aimed to protect domestic industries but has had far-reaching consequences. In retaliation, the European Union announced a 50% tariff on American whiskey, effective April 1st. This countermeasure targeted an important American export, escalating the dispute and signaling the EU's readiness to respond firmly. The situation further deteriorated when President Trump threatened a staggering 200% tariff on European wine, champagne, and spirits if the EU proceeded with its planned tariffs. This tit-for-tat strategy has sent shockwaves through global markets, with industries on both sides of the Atlantic bracing for impact. The stakes in this escalating tariff war are enormous. European wine and beer producers are sounding the alarm, fearing for their survival as the looming US tariffs threaten to cripple their industries and wipe out jobs. The US is a critical market for European alcohol, and with a 200% tariff on the table, this trade could be devastated, putting hundreds of thousands of jobs at risk. France, Spain, Portugal, Belgium, and Italy, countries heavily reliant on American consumers, are particularly vulnerable. Some producers are scrambling to find new markets in Africa and Asia, but shifting supply chains is costly, slow, and uncertain. The ripple effects of such widespread economic disruption raise serious concerns about the long-term consequences of these protectionist policies. On the American side, importers and retailers are bracing for disaster. A 200% tariff on European wines wouldn't just hurt trade, it would shock the entire industry. Prices would soar, demand would plummet, and iconic European brands could disappear from American shelves. Consumers would have fewer choices, while restaurants, bars, and distributors would be forced to absorb massive losses or pass the costs onto customers. The economic fallout could be felt far beyond the wine industry, affecting businesses up and down the supply chain. This escalating trade war isn't just about tariffs, it's straining long-standing alliances. Even Australia, a historically close US ally, is now questioning its relationship with Washington after facing new US tariffs on its steel and aluminum exports. As global tensions rise, the unintended consequences of these aggressive policies are beginning to unfold, raising a critical question. How far will this trade war go before it spirals out of control?
We'll be talking with our American counterparts to try and convince them that they're heading in the wrong direction.
The recent US tariffs on Australian steel and aluminum have strained this alliance, prompting Australian leaders to question the reliability of the US as a steadfast partner. This shift shows the potential for trade disputes to disrupt not only economic relations, but also geopolitical dynamics, leading countries to reassess their strategic alliances and explore new partnerships. Financial markets have not been immune to these developments. The uncertainty stemming from the escalating tariffs has contributed to market volatility, with investors wary of the potential for a global economic slowdown. However, some, like Shark Tank star Kevin O'Leary, view the market correction as a buying opportunity, suggesting that strong companies are now trading at attractive prices.
over $100 billion coming right back into the U.S. because of my policy. I don't see any downside for Trump on this one.
The use of tariffs as a tool for addressing national security concerns, as invoked under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, sets a precedent that other nations might follow, potentially leading to a cascade of protectionist measures worldwide. Such a scenario could disrupt global supply chains, increase costs for consumers and businesses, and stifle economic growth. The question now is, how far will this escalation go? And what measures will be taken to de-escalate tensions and restore stability to international trade relations? Let's take a look at how this tariff war is affecting the consumers and economy. In the US, the S&P 500, a benchmark for US equities, has officially entered correction territory, having declined over 10% from its recent highs. This downturn is largely attributed to the tit-for-tat tariff exchanges, which have heightened fears of a looming recession. European markets have not been spared either. Major indices across the continent have reversed earlier gains, reflecting the escalating trade war's impact on investor sentiment. Companies with significant exposure to international trade, particularly those in the manufacturing and export sectors, are bearing the brunt of this uncertainty. Retail giants like Walmart are also feeling the pressure. The imposition of higher tariffs translates to increased costs for imported goods, a burden often passed on to consumers through higher prices. This scenario is especially concerning for retailers that rely heavily on imported products, as they grapple with the dual challenges of maintaining profit margins and retaining price-sensitive customers. The economic alarm bells are ringing, and the numbers paint a grim picture. U.S. consumer sentiment has plummeted to its lowest level in 2.5 years, as Americans grow increasingly anxious about rising prices and the chaos unfolding in global trade. The uncertainty surrounding Trump's escalating tariffs has shaken confidence, forcing consumers to tighten their wallets and rethink their spending. But it doesn't stop there. Inflation expectations are spiraling upward, reaching levels not seen since 1993. This puts the Federal Reserve in a high-stakes balancing act. How do they fight inflation without crushing economic growth? In response, the Fed is expected to cut interest rates twice this year, in September and December. But here's the catch. Slashing rates while inflation is rising is a dangerous game. It could lead to stagflation, the nightmare scenario of high prices and a slowing economy. And the ripple effects aren't just hitting the US or the EU. The entire global economy is feeling the strain. Trade wars don't just raise prices. They disrupt industries, slow down innovation, and fracture diplomatic relationships. Historically, these battles leave more losers than winners, with ordinary consumers paying the price as imported goods become more expensive and economic growth stumbles. So why is Trump doubling down on tariffs despite these risks? The answer lies in political power and deep divisions within the US. Let's break down the real reason why Trump is pushing this trade war forward, and why he thinks he can get away with it. President Trump's trade policies have caused a lot of debate, both in politics and in the economy. His tariffs, taxes on imported goods, are meant to help American industries by making foreign products more expensive. However, not everyone in his own party agrees with this approach. Many Republicans publicly support the tariffs because they believe they will strengthen American businesses. But others are worried that these policies could hurt industries in their home states, showing a conflict between party loyalty and the economic interests of local communities. During a visit to Michigan, Vice President J.D. Vance defended the tariffs, saying they were necessary to bring back American manufacturing jobs. He asked people to be patient, claiming that while there may be short-term struggles, the economy would benefit in the long run.
Rome wasn't built in a day, of course. This is not going to happen overnight. But I think that both businesses and workers are ultimately going to benefit from President Trump's policies.
However, not everyone shares his optimism. Many experts and citizens are unsure whether these tariffs will truly help or if they will do more harm than good. This disagreement reflects a much larger national debate about whether such trade policies are effective. People across the country have mixed feelings about the tariffs. A poll from Navigator Research found that 41% of registered voters are against Trump's tariff plan, while 37% support it. A big concern for many is the rising cost of goods. About 60% of people surveyed worry that the tariffs will make everyday items more expensive. These fears are supported by economic data, showing that consumer confidence has dropped to its lowest level in over 2 years. Many people are worried about inflation and the overall stability of the economy. The Democratic Party has strongly criticized Trump's tariff policy. They argue that other countries might retaliate by imposing their own tariffs on American goods, which could hurt farmers and businesses that rely on exports. Instead of helping American industries, Democrats say the tariffs might actually increase costs and make it harder for U.S. companies to compete in global markets. In Congress, the fight over tariffs is becoming more intense. Some Republicans are blocking votes that could challenge Trump's trade policies, preventing Democrats from even debating the issue. This has sparked a constitutional debate about the balance of power. Critics argue that by shutting down discussion, Republicans are weakening Congress's ability to oversee trade policy. Meanwhile, public frustration is growing. A CNN SSRS poll found that 54% of Americans disapprove of Trump's handling of the economy, marking a sharp drop in confidence. This dissatisfaction is not limited to one political group. Both Republicans and Democrats are increasingly worried about where the economy is headed. At the core of this heated debate lies a critical question. Are the tariffs worth the economic struggles they may cause in the short term? Supporters believe that enduring temporary hardships is necessary to rebuild American manufacturing and fix unfair trade practices. Opponents, however, argue that the tariffs could backfire, leading to higher costs, strained relationships with other countries, and an economic downturn. But this is not just about Americans. It is a global issue. So how are other nations taking it? In retaliation, the European Union announced countermeasures targeting U.S. goods worth approximately 26 billion euros, encompassing not just metals, but a broad spectrum of products. French Finance Minister Eric Lombard didn't mince words, labeling the trade war as stupid and emphasizing the EU's readiness to respond proportionately to U.S. actions. This tit-for-tat escalation has raised alarms about a prolonged and costly standoff, with both sides digging in their heels. The automotive industry hasn't been spared from this turmoil. BMW, a major player in the sector, projected a €1 billion loss for 2025, attributing it to the new U.S. tariffs and corresponding EU duties on imported vehicles. This development underscores the far-reaching consequences of the trade dispute, affecting industries beyond the immediate targets of the tariffs. Simultaneously, U.S. corporations are grappling with the ripple effects of these policies. Walmart, for instance, has been in discussions with Chinese suppliers, urging them to reduce prices by up to 10% to offset the impact of U.S. tariffs. This move highlights the retailer's dependence on global supply chains and the challenges in mitigating increased costs without passing them on to consumers. The Chinese government's swift response, summoning Walmart representatives for talks, reflects the delicate balance companies must maintain in this kind of environment. The toy industry is also feeling the pressure. MGA Entertainment, known for brands like Bratz and LOL Dolls, is accelerating plans to shift manufacturing out of China, increasing production in countries like India, Vietnam, and Indonesia from 10 to 15% to 40% within 6 months. This strategic pivot aims to mitigate the impact of U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods, but also signals a broader reevaluation of global manufacturing strategies amid the trade war. Diplomatic relations have become increasingly strained. President Trump's threat to impose a 200% tariff on European wine and spirits, following the EU's tariffs on U.S. whiskey, has further soured ties with long-standing allies. French Finance Minister Lombard's sharp criticism of the U.S. trade approach shows the deepening rift between the transatlantic partners. With tensions running high and neither side backing down, this trade war is on the verge of exploding into something even bigger. The next few weeks could bring major escalations, economic fallout, and unpredictable global consequences. Will cooler heads prevail, or are we headed for an all-out economic showdown? Stay ahead of the chaos. Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you don't miss the latest updates as this crisis unfolds.